Yes, people, welcome back to Albert JTV and Holly's Hotspurs. Espana 1, Inglaterra 0. We have new world champions, people. Unfortunately, football is not coming home for now. But before we get into it, let's smash the intro. World Cup 2023. Espana 1, Inglaterra 0. Amongst the unrest off the pitch, Spain are now world champions. Football may not be coming home, but Serena Wiegman's England Lionesses have come a long way. The legacy continues. Welcome to the World Cup Final Review Show. Yes, people, welcome back to Albert JTV and Holly's Hotspurs for the final time for this World Cup 2023 Women's World Cup. It's over, people. Spain are the new world champions. A lot to discuss. This is going to be a very difficult review to do. Try to do as much prep as I could do before the game, during the game, and before the live stream. So, people, if you can, it'd be very nice for the last time. Smash a like on Albert JTV and smash a like on Holly's Hotspurs. Let me come to my amazing co-host for the entire tournament thus far. Where do I start? Listen, it's we don't see England too many finals in regards to football in the men's and the women's game, actually. So when it does come along, it's an opportunity that doesn't come along that often. But there are a lot of positives to take from this tournament. I want to know how you feel. I know how you feel. It was a stupid question, but I have to ask you for the purpose of the live stream podcast.
Yeah, I'm gutted. I'm not happy. But like I say, it's the legacy that's kind of left. We said all tournament that this tournament has probably been the best competitive tournament we've ever seen. And it's just unfortunate that we couldn't get over that final hurdle and bring it home. But it is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, man. I was feeling it during that game, man. I'll be honest. I'm gonna before we talk in more, let's get our amazing guest in. Actually, Holly, introduce our amazing guest, please.
So we do have Josh from Mail Sport. Josh, it's great to have you on. Obviously, we'd prefer it if it was on better terms, but it is what it is. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I was gutted, obviously, this morning, but I apologise in advance for saying it. Like you, Holly, a Spurs fan, seeing Chelsea lose has kind of healed some of the wounds, and also just reflecting on what a brilliant tournament it's been.
Well said.
I would just say, from the start, there was a lot of politicking going on. There was a lot of controversy surrounding, particularly the TV rights and Infantino sticking his neck on the line and saying weird things as he always seems to do. And obviously the stuff with the bonuses as well. But what was great to see was that once the girls landed in Australia, once the football began, that's what it was all about. It was just about football. And what a celebration of football in general this whole tournament was. From start to finish, it was thoroughly entertaining. We had so many shocks. I mean, I don't think anyone was, going to rightly guess that as many big teams would go home early, that we would have seen the final that we saw, perhaps, and just overall, players that have burst onto the scene and players that we knew we could count on delivering on the big occasions. So, I was just thinking about how brilliant the whole thing was and how brilliant England were. Serena still has my backing. I thought she was brilliant throughout the tournament. All the girls were brilliant, and through everything, they stuck together. And, it wasn't meant to be this time, but, I do take the view that this is just the start. I mean, we had the Euros win just over a year ago, getting to a World Cup final. I mean, we weren't having these conversations a few years ago about England. They were always, certainly in the last 5-6 years, getting much better. But now we're at a point where we've seen a shift in the dynamic, now where Europe is the dominant force in women's football.
Big time.
And, there are teams like Nigeria, for example, who I'm really excited by, really excited by Japan as well. Yeah. And there are teams that, perhaps wouldn't have even been in the conversation that you're thinking, if they carry on the way that they're carrying on, You know, you can't call the next tournament. You can't call, you know, and I certainly don't think we can call the next Euros either in Switzerland, I think it is. So, yeah, I mean, you know, gutted, but what a great tournament.
Yeah, Josh, great words. We were talking to us. I was kind of thinking, Hollie, to be honest, how I was going to do this, because obviously the overriding emotion is disappointment. But like I said to you, I kind of looked at England's record in World Cups actually. Start going back to the early 90s. 1991 didn't qualify. 95 quarterfinal. The next two World Cups didn't even qualify. Quarterfinal in 2007, 2011, and third place and fourth place respectively in the last two before obviously the runners-up in this final. So when people talk about process, which is a word that a lot of Arsenal fans are familiar with, there has been an extreme process over a number of years. There's a lot of footballers that have played for England over many a year, where we've led to this point to get to World Cup final. That's a massive, massive achievement for this group of players. Sort of before I come, Josh, sort of coming to you, Spain actually, I wasn't aware of this. Before the start of this World Cup, they've only won one game. It's only their third World Cup, so to make the final amongst the backdrop, as Josh, I'm sure you're well aware of, a lot of the players that are not there, who should be there celebrating.
12 in total, I think 12.
Yeah, 12. I think it's 15. It started off. I think they only called back Bon Marti, Una Basho, and I can't remember the other player to come back in. There's a lot of unrest there, and there's a lot of good players missing. Pino and is it, what's her name? The centre back for Spain. I think something Leon, is it? I think is it that for the centre back for Spain. I'll have to get the name up when I'll come to it. But yeah, what was your sort of thoughts coming into the final for England's chances, really?
Well, I don't know if we cast our minds back to the last time I was on your wonderful show, and you asked, you know, who I saw as the contenders in this tournament. There were three stood out for me, which were England, Germany, and look how that went for them. Come on, and Spain. And for me, you know, I said Spain would be a dark horse because I look at the individuals and I think, what a group of players they have. They've got this balance of youth and experience, but the problem for Spain has always been the politics around it. And can those individuals who are so brilliant in their own right come together as a collective, as a team? Can we see them gel in the same way that England gelled? And I think almost the adversity of what's been going on, you know, away from strictly what's on the pitch, has actually bonded those players closer together, and it's created that kind of dogged spirit. So, you know, I think England were always in for a tough game. You know, England, and you're right to point out, you know, I think it was 12 players that could have been at the tournament that weren't in the tournament, top players, right? Yeah. And we were thinking Leah Williamson's a big miss, Beth Mead's a big miss, but they have even more players that weren't available for the tournament. So, you know, it just shows how many options they've got. And I think actually it worked out in their favor because the majority of that squad was Barcelona. Yeah. So to have players, you know, and they're obviously they're European champions. You've got a group of, you know, players that know each other inside out. It's almost telepathic. So, you know, I was confident England was going to win, and I felt England was going to win on the basis of their togetherness and on the basis of individuals having magic moments. And I think that's what kind of England has been all about. It's been a team that works for each other, but then it doesn't matter who it is. It could be anyone in that squad. There's all of them are capable, in my view, of creating a magic moment. That's how I saw it going. I didn't think England would actually be favourites for this game, as I didn't actually think at the time that they would be favourites against Australia, given the home crowd and Sam Kerr and Caitlin Ford, who I thought was magnificent this tournament. So, you know, going into this one, it was confidence, but obviously, you know, like any final, you know, it's 90 minutes. It's what's on the pitch. It's, you know, there could be a load of different circumstances that determine the game, from refereeing decisions, as Hollie and I know so well from the Champions League final when we played Liverpool. You know, this is in any football, right? or it could be a player slipping and doing their ankle or getting a serious injury, and that could be that. Imagine, if Mary Earps was to get in a collision and be injured, she was the standout for England in the final for me. She was absolutely
she's outstanding, yeah.
And not only do I absolutely love her as a player, but I think the personality is just the best. And she had her own Jill Scott-esque moment when the penalty was. let's not forget that. I mean, that was dodgy, right? She was miles off the line. Should have been retaken, but they didn't notice it. And I'm not going to obviously repeat what she said, but
please, Josh. Sorry.
It's iconic, and it sums up kind of how passionate they all were for the badge, how passionate they are for each other as a team, and so it was just the way it went. And obviously, as the game wore on, minute by minute, Spain were dominating more and more, and I thought it was going to be tighter than it was. And it's weird to say that because obviously the scoreline was only 1-0.
Yeah,
but as far as I'm concerned, Spain could have put 3, 4, 5 past England today. I thought England were actually really poor. But England still defensively, I thought, were really good today. I think Lucy Bronze struggled, but
big time today. Big time.
We can accept that though, because look, Lucy Bronze has been such a top performer at the highest level and has been such a standout for so many years now. And it just so happened that the one very rare time that she has a bit of a stinker was in the World Cup final, and it does happen. It is life, but I think we can hold our heads up high. Serena and the whole team, everyone that was there. But I think Serena put it perfectly. They should have no regrets, but also admitting they didn't have the answers today, unfortunately. In Spain, you've got to give them credit. They were the better team, and they were deserving winners of this tournament.
No, Josh, well said. Before I bring Hollie in, just want to quickly post to you. Like when we brought you on for the preview show, we spoke about Spain. Actually, said we knew what we saw in the final shouldn't really have been a surprise. I've been lucky enough to watch Barcelona ladies, for example, play when they came and demolished Arsenal ladies at the Emirates. Man, they keep the ball so well. The movement and the quick passing is insane. Yes, they got absolutely trounced by Japan, but Japan were very, very tight and resolute and countered them 4 times and they scored. But it wasn't a surprise to me. It surprised me a little bit, Josh, to be honest, how England struggles centrally in that system. And Ian Wright mentioned it in the sort of analysis before the game. He said, look, Spain are gonna pick holes in England's wide areas and they're gonna overload, and they did. And I just don't think England, Bronze and Daly on each flank, I don't think they knew whether to stick or twist. Kira Walsh was exposed way too many times. Hermoso was very clever, and Bonmati just a different kettle of fish. And they came short. They pulled all England all over the place. And you make a good point, actually, Josh, in the sense that it was only 1-0, but Spain dominated large chunks of that. Do you think it was a case of maybe this time, as well as the Nigeria game, the 3-5-2 just didn't really work for England today?
Look, I'm not really in any position to criticize Serena Wiegmann's tactics per se, because look, she is the most incredible coach. I think you could put her in any team, in any league, in any situation, and I think she would win things and she would be successful. But I think the thing that I noticed was it was night and day between the two teams in terms of the tactical approach, the way that the way that they see football perhaps as being played, and I don't think that's necessarily a thing that's reflective of the players per se, because you go and watch Chelsea and the way that they play football is very different. It's a lot more progressive, it's a lot more forward thinking, and it's one of those things, right, where I feel like we had a group of players that were made to play attacking football, made to play front foot football. Yet I found it was a lot of the time, you get into good wide areas or good central areas, and rather than making that decisive pass, or rather than having that bit of extra movement and doing a few overloads when you had the opportunity, on the basis of wanting to avoid being counter-attacked, because obviously Spain do have a lot of pace. It was, there were particularly, one player in particular that stood out for doing this, and this is not reflective again of her as a player, because I think she's fantastic. But Georgia Stanway, I think, in so many situations had the ball in great areas and then passed the ball right way back. And it's like, you've done all this work to build up the pitch, and the ball's back to this halfway line, and you've undone your work. And what you've also done is you've attacked at a pace that isn't quick enough, that allows Spain to get numbers back. And then in passing the ball back, you've invited a lot of pressure on yourself, and then you're forced to try and go long or play, hospital balls through, the eye of a needle, and Spain pick you off one by one. And that's what was going on. Spain, had our number today every single time pretty much. And, the times where we looked most dangerous, actually, I felt, was when Lauren Hemp was put through on the counter-attack. You've got a player of that speed. Why aren't you using that more? And I felt like we just perhaps didn't play to our strengths today. And one thing I will always praise Serena Wiegman for is she is ruthless. And she could see that it wasn't working in the first half.
Good shout.
And she made the 2 changes. She brought Russo off. And I felt Russo was really swallowed up today. I felt like she didn't have a sniff, and she brought Daly off as well. And I just felt like the change, you're bringing Lauren James in, and she's one of those players. I think she epitomizes what I was saying about England in terms of having individuals that create magic moments. Lauren James epitomizes that for me. But for me, it was already too late, because you've already got a goal down, and Spain aren't bad defensively, in my view. They're quite well structured. They know where they're meant to be. And so for me, it was just a case of, it's a really tough call, and it's all, captain hindsight, right? But ultimately, upon reflection, it probably wasn't the right approach. I would have liked to see England go in and actually play with a bit more confidence. It just felt like throughout this tournament, and I don't think that, England were bad at all this tournament, but I think there was not one performance in this tournament for me. Maybe Australia was the only one that was on par with the Euros, but the Euro performances were so much better. And I feel like if England played the way that they played in the Euros, we might have seen a completely different game. But then,
Josh, just to quickly come in, do you think that's a
huge part of that?
Yeah, Josh, just to come in quickly for bring Hollie, do you think you make a good point actually? Because I mentioned this to Hollie in the last show. Look, England are not the only side that have come into this tournament for whatever reason with not some of their star players there. Could you argue a case? And don't get me wrong, there's some talented girls in that England side. Don't let me just have it right, even the ones that didn't start. But do you think maybe with what you mentioned, what you saw in the Euros, yes, it's a home tournament, that maybe not having the likes of Williamson, the Kirbys, and the Meads probably made a little bit of a difference today?
Look at any team in any situation and take 3 of their best players out and expect them to be the same level, And that's just where I think we are at the minute. I don't think that this is a reflection on the girls that did play, because I think that, there was so much experience and there was a great balance of youth and experience in that team.
Yeah,
really good players. But for me, I think our expectations went up massively after the Euros. And I think that perhaps we underestimate the impact of having that home tournament, and we underestimate the impact of COVID's just been and gone. People all rallied around it. It had that kind of almost like Olympics-like atmosphere. It's the only thing that I can compare it to was like the London 2012 Olympics in terms of how the whole nation just rallied around them. And, Beth Mead for me was one of the most influential players in the Euros. You take her out.
Very, very influential.
In terms of the creativity in that midfield. And I think that was what we lacked was actually it was that one player who's going to pick the locks and break down teams. Because look at the way that Nigeria set up, for example. You know, England really struggle with that. That's where you need a player like Beth Mead. I don't think it's a reflection of the squad per se, but
yeah, of course.
Take any take 3-star players out of any team, you're going to have some difficulty. I just feel like what we're seeing actually is there's a group of players where I look at the Lauren Hemps, the Russos, Stanways, Ella Toon, these types of players. I think next tournament is where my expectation goes up.
Yeah.
Because I think they've had a couple more years of playing,
Yeah.
at this time. And I think they will all mature as players. There's a lot of young players in this squad. Lauren James is going to be, she's going to be, I think, probably the poster girl of the next tournament for us. I mean, we can all see her quality. So, as far as I'm concerned, all winning teams, all championship winning teams, trophy winning teams need that balance of youth and experience. But perhaps maybe we were just in that position where the older players are perhaps a year too late and the younger players are a year too early, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So overall, the quality was there. But I think now going forward, what needs to happen for me is I think that Serena needs to, take stock and the players take stock. And I really want to see a clear identity from England going forward. I want to see England play a style of football where you say, that's England. Because when you look at Spain, whether it be the men's, the women's, the club team.
You know the style of, you do, yeah, 100%.
I want to see us talk about English football, right? And know that style is England. And I think that will only grow as the more these players are together, and someone's just commented, Stanway and Russo, they're special. I absolutely agree with that. And I think that now let's see how we can go forward and develop a style that is, very much us and suits our star players, because we've got so much quality there. And I just feel like, particularly Alessia Russo, and I'm always going to bang the drum for Alessia Russo, Maidstone girl. I'm a Kent boy, I know she's a gooner, but
no, I love it too, Josh. I love it too.
She is my England hero, right, in that team. And we didn't play to her strengths at all tournament for me.
Josh, you make a good point, actually. I'm going to come, Hollie, and come to you. Josh mentioned about the strengths, and because I thought Serena Williams obviously saw it wasn't working, made 2 changes. And I just thought, you know what? If you're bringing on Chloe Kelly, who's direct and puts great balls into the box, man, it would have been ideal for Russo. So I just felt, I was like, oh man, like, because I thought James, even though she didn't really, it's difficult for her to get into the game. I thought the changes did make a difference. It's a better second half performance. And touch on what Josh said as well. We spoke about this on the last show. Spain in their age groups, right? Like Salma Perello, that was a genius to start her today. Head of Patella, she was excellent. I mean, she's played in now 3 World Cup finals in different age groups. So she's 19. It's insane that their talent pool is insane. But one thing I was worried about, Hollie, I've got to be honest, going into the final, was Spain are not the opposition that you want to go down 1-0 to.
No.
Especially in a World Cup final. Yes, they pulled it around in the Euros, I get it. But I just thought in the final, I thought this is not. I know Hemp hit the post in the first 15 minutes, but yeah, what was your sort of thoughts on it?
It was just irritating, like you say. I think, like you said, if Hemp managed to score that goal that hit the crossbar, we'd probably be having a different conversation right now. And that's just the way football is. It swings in roundabouts. But like you say, I think it was just the part that obviously led to the goal was obviously Bronze decided to run with it, drive inside and lost the ball, which then obviously left that space behind. And if you learn anything from watching Spain in this tournament, they exactly know when and how to pass the ball. And they did that to obviously exploit our back line and managed to put the ball in the back of the net. So it was just frustrating. It's like Lucy Bronze of that kind of stature, she never really puts a foot wrong. And it's like on this massive occasion, it was so unfortunate that it obviously landed to her that made that mistake. But I think like in the second half, I think we managed to go leaps and bounds to try and change it. It just wasn't going in our favour. And like you said, that change for Kelly coming on was great. But when you haven't got that figure up top to manage to head it in the back of the net, it's like
that's the problem. Yeah,
it's the timing. I think that was the most irritating thing. And then you also think to yourself, but James is the one that is going to have that little bit of magic. Like Josh said, it's going to be that player that's going to make something happen. So it's like, who do you then pull off instead to still have Russo on? It was a very complicated game in that kind of sense.
Hollie, come in your quick fire.
I was going to say, because obviously we've spoken a little bit about the midfield and how overrun we were in the middle, Josh. And I've had this thought lingering over me the last couple of games with Kira Walsh, because I don't know whether it was the injury or what, but it felt like in this game, there was a few times where she got caught out in the sense that she'd lose possession, and in times when you don't want to lose possession and allow Spain to have the ball. So do you think it was the right call? And I know we talk about hindsight all the time, but do you think it was the right call to have Kira Walsh in that middle when there's been times this tournament after injury that I just don't think she's been on her A game?
Yes, I think it was the right decision to start her because she is on another level to every other player in that squad in terms of what she is capable of doing in that midfield. And it's one of those, obviously from a kind of Tottenham perspective, I'm sorry to bring it back to Tottenham, but it's the Harry Kane Champions League final question, right? And for me, when you've got a player of that quality, you've got to trust that they can deliver on the biggest stage as long as they are fit. And that's a decision they would have had to make. And it wouldn't have been an easy decision. And, for me, it would have been really easy to bring Lauren James into that starting lineup. And hindsight probably should have started. However, Serena stuck to her guns and trusted the team that got us to this point. And I think that, part of that, Kira Walsh, it would be really hard to drop her for that. So I don't think Serena is the type of coach that would be scared to drop a Kira Walsh. I just think that the system didn't suit her. I think that in midfield, we ended up in the system with the 3-5-2, I just think we ended up in a situation where, we ended up outnumbered in lots of areas. And I felt like the structure wasn't particularly great. And Kira Walsh found herself almost riding solo in that midfield a lot because everyone else seemed to drift out wide quite a lot. The attacks were coming down the flanks, and actually there was a lot of space in that middle, but I felt she actually had very little support. So I think that I think 100% was the right decision to start her. I just think that the system, I think probably did her dirty a little bit there in that game, because I don't think that this game is a reflection of her as a player. We all know her quality.
Yeah, 100%.
No, definitely. And I think as well, because obviously it was a bit unfortunate as well when the penalty was given. And the thing that drives me insane, and I think it's the same in the Premiership, in any kind of walks of football at the moment, is the fact that it takes so long to decide whether it's handball or not. I mean, for you, Josh, it does strike a hand. It's more the fact of if it's clear and obvious, why does it take 3 to 5 minutes to decide whether it is or not?
It's not clear and obvious. It's as simple as that. It is as simple as that. If it takes that long, it's the wrong decision, right? And for me, I felt it was a really soft penalty. It was so close to her that justice was served, actually, when Mary Earps was off her line and they didn't spot it. I want to use a certain word, something housery, to describe Lucy Bronze with the referee, with her teammates as well at Barcelona that she was winding up. You love all of that, right? And I think it really did help. But it was weird. And to be honest, I felt that the standard of refereeing wasn't bad this tournament.
It's good. It's okay. Yeah.
But I also wouldn't say it was outstanding either. I think that the quality of refereeing can improve, but I think that this is not a referee problem. I think this is a VAR problem and an implementation of VAR problem. And I'm just going to throw this out there. For me, I think you take the power. You either give the power in exclusively to the referee and you don't interfere. And unless it's clear and obvious, and well, that's the thing. They say it's meant to be clear and obvious, but I think they just, anytime there's a handball, they check it, right?
Yeah.
For me, I think you can do one of two things. As I say, you leave the power entirely in the hands of the referee, unless the referee has completely missed it and not seen it to give a decision. If the referee has given the decision, which she did, she saw it and she said no penalty, you stick with that. Or you take all of the power away from the referee and you say, no, you got this wrong. This is the decision. Skip out the middleman. There's no need for the referee to go over to that monitor. If they're going to call it, and if you know that the second she looks at the monitor, it's going to be given as a penalty because they're still having those conversations, just say, you're wrong. It's a penalty. You've missed that one. We've checked it over, because these VAR officials are meant to be qualified referees of the same standard. So, what's the point? What is the point? For me, I just think the game is worth binning VAR altogether. I can't stand it. I think it ruins football completely. It wastes time. It's not good for the momentum of the game. I think it's bad for the players as well. And I think that, and this is a fact, right? I'm not even saying this is an opinion. I think this is a fact. They're making terrible decisions with VAR. They were making terrible decisions without VAR. What is the
they're still doing it.
What is the difference? At least let the referee have the integrity. I think the VAR removes the respect that one can have for the referee. I think the welcome edition was hearing the referee, but I think the fact that you can't hear the referee's conversation with VAR made that pointless. Because yes, you can see the referee say, "I'm giving it for handball," and that's all that was said. It wasn't why. So, unless you're going to mic the ref up properly, fans are never going to be on side with this. I don't think fans are ever going to properly understand from a referee's perspective. And I think that they've lost their integrity now, because I have a degree of respect for referees, right? And I always have respected referees, but I had a lot more respect for referees when VAR wasn't in place, because it's like, yeah, humans make mistakes. That's fine. You cannot expect someone often who's a lot older than the group of players that are playing on the pitch to see everything, And so if they're going to carry on this way, what's the point of having them in the first place? Bring in the robots. It's like, So, sorry, rant over, and I know I've digressed a little bit from England here, but it's just one of those things that, it spoils the spectacle. And I think that justice was definitely served there for England.
No, great shout. And sort of touching on, obviously, Mary Earps has had a fantastic tournament, and my word, she came to the forefront in the final. She just obviously couldn't help. And I think the penalty save was on 69 minutes, and I thought that was a turning point, which she said. I thought, look, let's try and get a cohesive 5-10 minutes together. But I just felt with England, sort of, and half Hollie quickly, I'm going to come to you, Josh. I think it's been a pattern of playing the tournament for me personally with England, but I thought, particularly when you're 1-0 down, you chase the game against the top side like that, and when you've got the ball, I just felt it gave it away way too easily centrally, man. I lost count of times it happened with Stanway. I lost count of times it happened with Kira Walsh. Toon just done pure doggies until she came off and just was running all over the pitch. There wasn't enough moments in the game, particularly in the second half for me, where they created any chances, even with the 13 minutes added injury time. I don't particularly remember a chance I had, apart from what I think the Lauren James shot, but Chloe Kelly put a few good balls into the box. But again, where was the focal point in the middle? It was very frustrating. Although the second half was a bit better and they kind of turned it into Premier League game, the England players, rather than letting Spain just dance around and dilly-dally with the ball. What was your thoughts, Hollie? I mean, do you agree, or what patterns did you think was missing for England?
I think it's like you said. I don't think there was much cohesion. We didn't manage with Spain. You could see they were doing their tiki-taka football, which is what Josh said. They've got that style of play. With us, we would just seem to be all over the gaff. And I mean, we talked about the Australia game, and I think that was the pinnacle for England this tournament, and the fact that the back line were up for it. Today, it just felt really non-existent. It was like we were half going in for challenges. It felt that, like you say, every time we got rid of the ball, we were just clearing it hopelessly. There's just nothing was clicking. And I don't know whether it's because with Spain, they just managed to spawn round everyone in 3 passages. There was 3 of them on 1 player at times. And I don't know whether that was kind of fragmenting us a little bit. But I think it's true. I just don't think we managed to get our three in midfield on the ball, and they are our key players that managed to make things tick, and it just wasn't working. It was just infuriating. Like you say, we managed to get the ball in good areas, and I know we always reverted back to Spurs, but it was like Spurs last season. The first instant is to pass it backwards, and there was many times in this game when I thought, drive of it or pass it inside or pass it, and it wasn't. It was just backwards, and I don't know whether it's a confidence thing, but I don't know. I don't know whether we reached our peak playing in Australia, and it was like, right, we've arrived now. These guys got beat by Japan. It's fine. We can play our football, but it wasn't the case. I just think that Spain were more up for it, to say, in respects of playing the way they wanted to play, and we just kind of backs down to that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So just bringing you in, like I've taken on from what Hollie was saying. I'm not saying it's easy, by the way, before people start losing it, but when you're in a final, and I liken it back to, always go back to this when England played Italy in the Euro final. You have to be brave in certain areas of the pitch. You have to be. You have to take it to the opposition. I think Lauren James tried when she came on. She did try, and Chloe Kelly was a very direct as she normally is. But I just thought when England were in possession, Josh, mate, I just be a little bit more brave. It's easier said than done, but you have to be. It's a final. You're 1-0 down. Something's got to, whether it's from the manager on the touchline or the assistant or one of the players on the pitch, something's got to change to try and turn this game. What's your thoughts on that, mate?
Do you know what? I mean, I have an 11 that I would have gone for. And I think that probably would have summed up what I was looking for England. And it's quite risky. But I would have gone with sort of 4-3-3 type shape. Keep that midfield three. But I think that the difference would have been get rid of one of the defensive players and actually give yourself a little bit more going forward and trust the defenders that you have. For me, and I thought Carter was superb this tournament.
Yeah, she's been brilliant.
And I felt like, Millie Bright was superb this tournament as well. And I thought Greenwood was excellent today, actually. But I actually, and this is going to be controversial take, right?
Go on, Josh.
I would have risked Lauren James somewhere like right back. And it might sound really weird, and I'm not trying to put her there just because of her brother. But when I look at her physical attributes and her technical ability, her pace, her ability on both feet, and the fact that she wins her duels, she wins her 50-50s, I think you could have played her as an attacking fullback. And I think that you could have allowed Walsh to drop deep if need be when she gets forward. And I would have kept, Stanway, Walsh and Toon in the middle. And I would have gone with Chloe Kelly from the start. And I would have gone with Kelly on the left.
That. Yeah, you did say that.
And I would have gone with Hemp on the right. And I would have gone with Russo up top. And I would have done a 4-3-3 like that, where I would have said to Toon and to Stanway, be a little bit more conservative, perhaps.
Yeah.
The opportunity arises to get forward. One of you ghost in and be that supportive player. I like to call it crumbs, right? Where if a cross comes in and someone heads it out, you're that player that's on the edge of the box that picks it up, picks up the loose ball. And between Stanway and Toon, I think they both have the technical ability and the attacking quality to play that role and to do that. And I think that Kelly and Hemp, for how direct they are on the wings, would have caused real problems. And I think that if you had both of them in there and you had Hemp crossing the ball, you would have had Russo and Kelly both in that box getting to the ball rather than just one individual player. Because what was going on was just dropped my phone there. There was one moment in particular where there was that ball that went across the face of goal and Toon couldn't quite reach it.
Yes.
And you're thinking, well, why was Russo not in the box there?
Yeah.
And so for me, I would have gone with something like that, and it would have been a risk. It would have been a risk, but I trust the players that we have to have delivered in a system like that. Because for me, I think this might sound weird to say, but there's playing with heart, but you've also got to remember to play with your feet. And I felt like we played with our heart almost more than we played with our feet, which is not a bad thing. I think it's just a sign of perhaps
balance, isn't it? Yeah, pressure.
Maybe a little bit of inexperience in terms of, there was obviously a change. There were some players that were brought into the team that perhaps weren't playing regularly in the Euros. And, tournament football's a very different thing. You know, the World Cup is different to the Euros as well. You're playing teams that provide a completely different test. England never had a test like we had with Nigeria in the Euros.
That was a massive test. Yeah. Huge. Yeah.
So, you know, for me, I just think that you could have sacrificed a defensive player. And I think that maybe that was the thing was, and it shows, right? Mary Earp's Golden Glove.
Fantastic.
England, you know, England defensively pretty solid throughout the tournament, you know, and I felt that, you know, maybe we were a little bit too conservative there. And where I think England is at their best is the attacking flair. I mean, just look at the attacking players, right, that we had in this squad: Daly, England, Hemp, James, Kelly, Robinson, and Russo, right?
Yeah.
That's stacked. But it's a bit like the England men's team, for example. You've got like 4 quality right backs and no decent left backs. It's kind of a bit like that. We're a bit top heavy there. So I'm thinking, how can we reinvent that slightly to create something that gives us a little bit more balance? Because I trust Greenwood fully defensively, right? So I think let Chloe Kelly at them a bit, because I felt like we never put their defenders under immense pressure at all in that game. And I think
they've been vulnerable during the tournament, by the way, Spain as well. That's the thing.
Exactly. So it might be a controversial take, but that's what I would have done with England. And I would have backed a player like Lauren James, who's got just such unbelievable quality that I think you could put her in goal and she'd probably be good. So, you know, she's one of those players that I think if you told her to do a job there, I wouldn't put a centre back, right? But if you ask her to do a job, essentially what she's doing where she was out wide anyway, but just, you know, tracking back a bit more and holding the line if you're getting countered, you know, fill that gap. And she's got the pace and the fitness. I think that might have given us an edge, but I'm no professional coach. I let Serena do the work. I trust in Serena.
Yeah,
you know, we lost this game. In Serena, we trust, of course. But I'm just trying to think of alternatives. How could we have maybe attacked that game?
No,
go on,
I was just going to say, because obviously it kind of leads on to the next question, George. But I'm going to ask Albert first, and it's kind of in the sense of where we kind of go next, because obviously the Euros was a massive win for us. It was a massive pickup, and when the big ones such as America went out, I was kind of thinking, oh wow, we could possibly take this home. And obviously we were kind of shown a different kind of passage today, but where do you think we go next with England? What does Serena do next? Because obviously she's tied in for another 2 years, I believe. So
2025, yeah, that's right.
So what are you kind of saying? What are you kind of thinking?
Great question. Yeah, she's another 2 years. I mean, there was a lot of talk with her before the final. Actually, I'm like, yeah, the media got to do the job. Listen, there talks about the US team. There was talks about the England job and the men's team and kind of the men's game. A lot of stuff was said, but listen, she's made it quite clear she's going nowhere. She's still got 2 years left on her contract. I think them not getting a job done today, Hollie, and Jonas Eidevall mentioned it after the match. This should be good. This should give England major fire in the belly. Yes, for the Euros, but obviously for the next World Cup as well. As mentioned, you know, this is only some of the ladies' second tournament. That's not a lot of tournament experience, particularly if you maybe didn't feature that much in terms of the Euros, for example. But the future's bright, man. Look, this England ladies have done something that's never been done before by the ladies team. They made a major final, and that's some feat. Off the back of obviously making an Euros final. You know, Serena Wigman's a top coach, man. Like 4th major finals in a row. That doesn't happen that doesn't happen very often in the men or the women's game, just because of the pure cycle of the tournaments. Like every 4 years, but 2 years in between, obviously with the Euros and the World Cup. But listen, they've got a lot to be proud of. They've got a top coach. Look, they're gonna obviously have to. Listen, they've only lost 2 games under Wiegman, I believe. It's Australia and obviously the final today. That's quite an impressive record. Football's about fine margins, but I'm sure with the players you've got now, some of the guys that are going to come through. And one thing, Hollie, I think generally about the tournament, I think Josh will probably agree, it is about the infrastructure and, you know, the backing behind it. You've heard with many a team in this World Cup, like, you know, the Jamaican team having to create a GoFundMe page to get to the tournament. you know, we've heard the backstory about Spain and the unrest that's still there. Not just with the manager, but the facilities. We've spoken about in terms of the England, the player bonuses or incentives. And it has been a fantastic tournament, but there are still things on a wider scale of women's football that need to improve. But I think for England, it's about honing in, and people mentioned it about grassroots and coming through the age groups, and keep Serena that she's got 2 years. Give her the keys to the city if you can. But it would have been so fantastic if they got the job done today. Winning Euros was massive. Don't get me wrong, and there'll be an upturn in you know, coaching and the girls and the boys wanting to get into football. And listen, just because they didn't win today, it's a shame. I'm still gutted, but England making the finals huge. It's not easy to make finals, but as long as you put yourself in a position where you're at the latter stages of tournaments or you're making finals, you're giving yourself a chance. And the talent pool is there. It is there. And it will only get better. It's going to be sore for the England players now. But listen, we've got faith and we've got good hope in the manager that's there and the crop of players that are there. So yeah, I'm hopeful of the future. There's no guarantees in football. there definitely isn't, but hopefully this won't be the last time we see England ladies team in the World Cup final.
No, definitely. And I think that's the thing. I think the big thing for me is the Euros was great. And for me to see the influx in girls and boys all wanting to take up the sport from that Euros. And then obviously seeing how well we've done in this tournament. Yes, we didn't bring it home, but it just again proves that there is a place for women in football and just football in general. And it is great.
Hollie,
Josh,
Hollie, sorry, before you come to, I want to quickly ask you, because I want to get your thoughts, obviously, being a lovely young lady that you are. Like I know how important winning the Euros was, because I spoke you was very, very emotional, and I spoke to a few people, and rightly so, because it's a huge thing. And I remember speaking to Sophie from Highbury Squad. She said, "You know what? England have to win that Euros. Yes, it's great getting to the final, but they have to win it. You know, when we talk about legacy, it's not a word I like to throw out very, very easily, but with what this England team has been showing in the last 2 years, particularly under Serena Wiegman, it's been absolutely outstanding. How can you not want to get behind that?" So I just like to use, obviously, a female that loves football. What does it mean to you, obviously, what they've done this tournament?
It's amazing. And the thing is that really winds me up is when it's England. I don't necessarily like cricket, but if the England men are playing or women playing, I get behind them. And the thing that is, I don't necessarily see them as women's football and men's football. Yes, we could argue that, okay, the men's game's a bit faster, but the women's game's technical. But to me, it's just football. And if England, regardless of any sport they're in, I will watch it. And I think for me to be able to sit here and now see adverts with women's footballers on. When I was younger playing football, I had none of that. And to now see that these little girls that are coming through the ranks now, to be able to see like, right, I want to play like Lauren James, or I want to be like Beth England, or I want to score goals like Russo is something that I never had as a kid. And to see that there's now little kids, it meant like girls or boys that can say that now, it is just, it's amazing. Again, it's just, I don't want to say it's annoying. It's just unfortunate that it hasn't ended the way that we all wanted it to. But I think that just gives them so much more fight to go and get the next one. And like we said, we're kind of at a tipping point at the moment with the likes of the older players and the younger players. But I think coming up to the next tournaments, we're going to see that England squad that Josh has mentioned with a new identity. And I think that's something that we can all look forward to seeing.
No, great point. And you're going to come in. Sorry for you to ask Josh something. Sorry.
I was just going to say to Josh, because obviously we've spoken a lot about England and how they've done throughout the tournament. I just want to see what your kind of takes on the whole tournament is in general, in terms of, is there a standout team? I know we could talk about Spain, but is there a standout team for you that has gone leaps and bounds in this tournament to really make a stance on the world stage?
I think everyone was impressed by Nigeria this tournament. I think they were really, really good. I would also say, who really impressed me this tournament was actually Sweden. I thought Sweden were really good compared to, obviously, I'll be perfectly honest, right? I felt if we'd played Sweden in the semi-final, I'm not sure we would have even got to the final. Sweden were really good. And it would certainly, if we did play them, it wouldn't have been 4-0 like it was last time. So for me, And the other thing that I would say, it's one of those that I think Spain, you have to say them because of
100%.
they were before. But for me, one team that I really thoroughly enjoyed watching was Japan, and Miyazawa in particular. I mean, just ridiculous player. But I think overall, the only real shock for me was the US doing so badly. But actually, upon reflection, seeing the way that they built up to the tournament, all of the politics off the pitch, it seems, and I don't want to get into vilifying players or saying what's right and wrong or anything like that. But, from what I was seeing, and certainly in my job, we've got a US desk at Mail Sport, and Megan Rapinoe was public enemy number one, right? And that's a huge distraction to have for rights or for wrongs. That's a huge distraction to have to your camp. And I think they similarly were in a situation where they've got a lot of aging players. So yeah, generally speaking, I suppose it was a tournament of surprises. I think that the thing that probably surprised me the most was seeing this shift towards Europe. And now Europe I see as the dominant force, which in many ways makes the Euros win that much better. But can I just say something on England, actually? Because I was just thinking
go on.
Something you said, Hollie, actually, which kind of struck a chord with me, which is about spurring them on to go for the next one. I actually really like that we've lost this final, because I think that we're in this situation, right, where, of course, it's sad for the experienced players, right? But come the Euros in 2025, I want to say, isn't it?
Yep.
The players like Toon, Stanway, Russo, they're going to be the experienced players in that tournament. And they're going to be just at the point where they're considered experienced players on the number of caps. They're still going to be pretty young. They're going to have another Euros, another World Cup, probably another 2 Euros and World Cups in them, right?
Yeah.
A lot of them. But they're going to be at a point where those older players are replaced with younger players, and suddenly they're the ones that have to step up. And having had that heartbreak in this final, I think if you win the Euros and you win the World Cup, there's a risk, and maybe it's me being cynical, but there's a risk of it all happening for you too soon. And what I want to see is Euros, let's go and get to that final again. Next World Cup after that, let's get to the final again. I'm not saying win the tournament. I'm saying get to the final. Let's create a culture where players, it's like what I refer to as like the All Blacks culture, if you know what I mean. If you look at the All Blacks rugby team, that type of culture in football, where no matter who's in that squad, you know that you're going to get to the final. You know that you can get to the final. And if you get to the final, you've got a 50-50 chance of winning, right? And that's what I want to see from England going forward. I think they've got so much talent, and I think they've got such a great opportunity right now to become the dominant force in world football. Spain will have something to say about that. Brazil, I'm sure, will be back. But Sweden, I'm sure as well, having had the tournament that they've had, will be having words. But we're going to get to that point now where it's going to be a lot of teams vying for that. So I think the culture, if we can create a culture and a team that there's an identity, a way of playing, and let's get to another final, I back the girls to do it. Because, as I said, these players that have had the heartbreak now, I think it's good that they've had that whilst they're still all pretty young, because it means that they're going to go into that with a lot more experience. They're going to have learned from their mistakes, because these players, there's hope with them, It's not like when you look at certain players and you think it's no matter what you tell them or what you say about them, they're never going to learn. They're never going to learn from their mistakes. It's, we see it so much with Tottenham, for example, down the years. But I'm looking at this group of England players and I'm seeing these are hungry players that have so much passion. They get on so well as a group. They're developing at a club level like crazy. Every year, the WSL is just getting better and better and better. It's like, it's like the technology graph. When you look at how technology's developed, you see it's like this, and then it gets to like 2000 and something, and it goes like that. That's what we're seeing now with the WSL. It's just absolutely shot up. So for me, go into that tournament, more experience. And I think that benefits the younger players, of which a lot of them, they're all going to be teammates, aren't they, coming into the squad? So it's not going to be like, it's not like, I suppose, a situation where perhaps with the men's team, there's so many different teams that these players are coming from. There is perhaps a slightly smaller selection of teams that the players are coming from, which is actually really beneficial because they all know each other, they all love each other. And the ones that will come in, the kind of fresh crop of players, are also going to be players that are used to playing with those England stars. So, yeah, I think the future is bright. But I think that, yeah, I know it might sound weird saying that, but I hope you get what I mean when I'm saying actually maybe this might have been a blessing in disguise for the idea of creating a winning culture that's long lasting and not just a flash in the pan.
Yeah, no, I hear you. No, 100%. People, before I'll come to Hollie again, or I'll come to Josh, big up to people in the chat. Thank you for tuning. Obviously, we didn't get the result that we really, really wanted, but yeah, just want to say a big thank you to you guys in the chat. And what wants to do? People in the chat now, if you watch this back, drop in the comment section who your England player of the tournament was. Just want to get your thoughts, Josh, in terms of one England player for you that stood out for the tournament. Shall I come back to you, Josh?
Do you know what? I'm gonna go Mary Earps was my player of the tournament. And the reason why Mary Earps is my player of the tournament is because there were probably 5 or 6 outfield players I could have chosen. But I don't feel like any of them jumped out at me in a way that Mary Earps did in terms of some of the spectacular saves, some of the spectacular moments, her as a personality in that squad. And I think that this is one of the things when we judge a player of the tournament or a player, for a team, we always judge what they do on the pitch. But I think we need to also think about what they're doing off the pitch as well, because that's a huge part of everything that England is. A part of this Serena Wiegman kind of setup. It's all about what's going on off the pitch, behind closed doors, when they go into Australia Zoo and when they're doing all these things. That's such a huge part of the team. It's an unspoken part of football, right? Is what happens with those players when they're not playing those 90 minutes. So for me, she's like the gel that kind of glues everything together. Outstanding, great personality. She stepped up another level. She was unbelievable in the Euros. She was even better now. So yeah, Mary Earps is my player of the tournament. But yeah, I would say notable shouts. You could, certainly for me, I thought that Lauren James was excellent. I thought Millie Bright was excellent. I thought Jess Carter was brilliant. I thought Greenwood was brilliant. I'm going to end up naming the whole team. Maybe I wanted to see a little bit more from the attackers. I thought Russo stepped up in key moments, although I think that she will probably have wished she got more goals this tournament, because I know she's capable of doing that. And I also loved the impact that Chloe Kelly had when she was on the pitch. I know she obviously didn't start all the time and she, didn't have all the minutes, but when she was on the pitch, yeah, I mean, Chloe Kelly is just another level. And in many ways, I was surprised she didn't start the final, given what she did at the Euros, the crucial penalty as well, which was the hardest. What was it? They said, and there was some crazy stat. I think it was like
Sorry.
Something like it was hard. The penalty was a harder shot than any of the goals that were scored in the tournament or something. And it was something like they beat all of the Premier League players or something. The men
that was crazy.
For power on that one penalty. It was the weirdest penalty run up I've ever seen. Kangaroo hop thing. But yeah. But Mary Earps, it's got to be Mary Earps. I think that's the only fair way of doing it.
I'm going to be really boring and I'm going to say Mary as well, because I just love that. It was just that penalty today. Just when she saved it, like she stuck her tongue out. She gave it all the big uns. It was like, I love this woman, man. Like, carry on doing what you're doing. But yeah, for me, it's Mary Earps. Again, it's easy to choose a goalkeeper sometimes because it's a fine line in terms of she can save the game or she can be the villain. But this whole tournament, I think she's been the superhero. But I'm going to leave it to Albert, because I'm going to ask Albert his favourite player of the tournament. I already know who it is because he speaks about it every single stream we've done this tournament. So Albert, fire away. Who's your player of the tournament?
Yes, this shouldn't be on Albert JTV and Hollie Hotspurs. This really should not be a surprise, but because Demian, my guy from USA, put it in the chat as well. Mine, for me, without a doubt, is Alex Greenwood. I absolutely adore the woman, and I would tell her if I ever met her. She's been phenomenal. We did the show last time, Hollie, in terms of how integral she's been, not just to England, but in the tournament in terms of interceptions, passes, just completely influential. She took a bad injury today, strapped up like Terry Butcher back in the late 80s, early 90s. She did that tackle where she ran about 60, however many yards she ran. She didn't just tackle, she won it back in one swoop. I think she's been first class. I think she's been England's standout performance. And I'll be interested to see the team in a tournament because, well, if she's not in it, then I think there should be a steward inquiry, to be honest with you. But Alex Greenwood's been absolutely fantastic, and she's been integral, actually, in starting a lot of England's attacks as a left-sided centre-back. And I think Serena Williams just opened up her skill level set immeasurably fantastically well. And yeah, not a surprise to many people, but Alex Greenwood is my England player of the tournament. But people in the chat, thank you for jumping in with your player England player tournaments. I'm sure we'll look forward to many more tournaments. World Cup 2023 is over. I said to Hollie, I think this is the best women's World Cup I've ever seen. I think the standard's been incredible. Josh has touched on it. 3 African teams making the knockout stages. That Colombia-Germany game will live in my memory for a long time. That gave me goosebumps moment. That was incredible. Linda Caicedo, the winning header. The stadium went nuts. The South American support. There's been some amazing games this tournament, amazing goals. Tooney's great strike against the Matildas. I mean, wow, what a strike. But yeah, Hollie, our duo has come to, our collaboration has come to an end. We can start hating each other now again at club level. So
normal business can resume.
But I want to thank our amazing guest, Josh, for coming on, mate. And obviously, not the result we wanted, but thank you for coming on for the preview show at the start of the tournament. And thank you for your input, mate. Tell the people where they can find you, my friend.
No, thank you for having me. I've thoroughly enjoyed being on both times. I cannot wait to see the banter kick in off the back of this. Certainly when we go to your place coming up soon, I cannot wait.
Yes.
And I'll put it out there right now. If there's any way I can be part of it, I would love to, because I want to see this in the flesh. Yeah. Josh Hughes TV, Twitter is where I'm normally talking about Spurs. Sorry, if you don't like Spurs, you probably don't want to follow me because it's a lot of that. No, I'll sometimes tweet about other things as well. But yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit obsessed. I think we all are a little bit. But Josh Hughes TV on Twitter. And yeah, thanks again for having me. What a tournament. And, you know, it's only going to get better from here. It really is. And I'm sure that, you know, it's not going to be long. I'm sure 2025, you know, this is going to be back. And you're still going to be talking about Alex Greenwood.
I will be. Even in the Man City shirt.
33, 34 then. So yeah, thanks once again for having me on. It's been a real pleasure.
No, Josh, thank you, man. Thank you to all the guests we've had on actually throughout the course of 8 shows. It's been a blast. And not last but not least, I want to thank my amazing co-host. This was in the pipeline for quite a long time. This is the second tournament we've collaborated together. We've put our club shirts in the locker, the attic, the basement, just to wait for this tournament. It's been fantastic to do the tournament with you, Hollie. I absolutely adore you to pieces. You're an amazing content creator. Keep at it. There'll be plenty more collaborations, and it's been an absolute blast to do this with you. You've been amazing.
Apart from my timekeeping, apart from turning up late, I've been all right. But no, like I always say, it's good fun to do these tournaments where we can put our Tottenham Arsenal rivalry aside. But I want to say to everyone, Albert is the one that's done all the hard work. He's the one that's managed to put all the thumbnails together, that's done all the intro music, that's done all the outro music. I literally turn up on time, or try to turn up on time. So it all goes to you, my friend.
No, appreciate it. But like I said, it's been a blast to do this with you, and I look forward to doing more future collaborations with you for England Lionesses tournaments. Mary Earps, keep your head up, love. You've been fantastic. Absolutely. Wipe them tears away, man, because you'll be back bigger and better. People, our World Cup show is over. Hit the like button on Albert JTV and Hollie's Hotspurs. Subscribe to the channels and follow all myself and Hollie and Josh on our social media going along the bottom of the screen and in the box on the screen. All your listeners, you will never, ever, ever be forgotten. So you'll hear our dulcet tones to discuss the match review and the World Cup in total, in general. Sorry. Yeah, and hopefully you'll listen to it on the Apple download and the Spotify download. But this is Albert JTV and Hollie's Hotspurs over and out. We'll try and get advertisement for next World Cup or European Championships for me and Hollie to go over there in the flesh. That would be something. Can you imagine? Got my passport ready already. If I can find the outro, that might help. But big up to the people in the chat. And if you haven't watched this live, watch it back on Catch Up, people. Yes, smash the like for Albert JTV and Hollie's Hotspurs. We are over and out, people. See you in 2 years' time.